John, can you state your full name for me, just first and last?
John Cussins.
And you worked how many years for the city of Loyalton?
21 and a half.
And you were, what was your title and what did you do?
My title at the end was maintenance foreman, where you get to do a little everything. There's not a public works director or anything. You kind of do that job too, a little everything.
On December 2nd of 2016, you got this letter, and I was wondering if you could read a portion of it to us, starting with that second paragraph, please, as a result.
As a result of the city's default of its obligations, your retirement benefit related to services accrued with the City of Loyalton will be reduced effective with your January 1st, 2017 dated warrant. The adjustment will reduce both your City of Loyalton base option 3 allowance and your cost of living adjustment COLA by 60%.
How did you react when you read that letter?
Well, I was pretty upset. I had a feeling it was coming, just from the impression that CalPers had given me. Because in September, I went down to a finance committee meeting of CalPers and actually addressed the committee. And when I walked away from it all, I didn't have much hopes. It seemed like they were going to do this to us, no matter what.
Patsy thinks that they're making an example of you guys. To whom are they making an example?
Well, I'm not sure. It looks like to me they're also cutting their own throat, because they're making it where maybe other agencies are going to want to do the same thing. You know, what if they all come in and say, all right, you know, we're going to opt out. You can give us this big bill, we don't care. You can just cut our employees.
And the people who suffer aren't the agencies, it's the retirees.
It's the retirees. But then in the long run, CalPers is going to hurt too. Because still, again, they're going to be bringing in less money to pay out their pensions and everything. So to me, it's a losing situation all the way around. Not only did we lose, CalPers is going to be losing. If they start this, if this ball starts rolling, and that's what starts happening.
Well, they say that
everybody,
they don't expect others to do what Loyalton's done. It seems to me you think they're wrong.
Well, I don't see how it won't happen unless they start changing some of their policies. And that was mentioned there, that they need to start changing things and looking at things different. And like when we got there at that meeting, when they got to the city's deal on the agenda, one of the first things they did was start addressing their staff and how come they let this go so long, and why wasn't more done to pursue, you know, collecting the funds and everything else. Well, I never really heard any direct answers out of anybody. You know, at least that's the way I felt of it.
And yet CalPers points the finger of blame at Loyalton, and there's a question there's a question that we discussed whether Loyalton truly needed to stop making the payments or not.
Oh, and I really believe they didn't need to. I think they took this money for their own little projects. There's proof of it. There's documentation. City of Loyalton kept telling everybody, including myself, who was a council member up to a few weeks ago, and everything. I was being told they didn't know how much money was owed. Well, we have the documentation that proves it. They did know how much money was owed.
They knew in 2010 when they first inquired about it. The city's mayor then inquired about it.
Exactly. They knew there was no way they were ever going to come up with them funds.
So let me ask you this. Part of the agreement you made to be a city employee over those 20 plus years was the benefit of the pension.
Yes.
And that's something you hear throughout the country. We pay our city employees a little bit less than if they work in the private sector, because at the end of that, when they retire, they're going to get a better pension. In fact, you took 3 pay cuts during your tenure with the City of Loyalton.
Yes.
Because you thought what?
Well, I thought, you know, hang in there. I've got so many years in with the pension plan, the benefits and stuff like that. I can just make a go of it. And I enjoyed my job, and I like serving the community.
And then the city does this to you.
Yeah. Well, I even went back. They were running off my water and wastewater licenses for over 1.5 years, up until just a few weeks ago, and I pulled that from them for nothing, trying to help this community.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the message that, whether it's the City of Loyalton's responsibility or CalPers' responsibility, what is the message to 1.8 million people who are retirees or active employees who are covered by CalPers right now? What is the message about what's happening to you?
Well, I would say it's wrong. I think, CalPers needs to change. I don't know how about going about that. They used to send us deals where we vote on directors and stuff like that because they called us members, even though they don't stand behind you if you're a member or anything, because they wanted, even with me, they kept hollering our contracts with the city, not with you. Well, you're managing our money too, so how do you not have a contract with us too? Or at least some kind of obligation to us. But I think that's the best thing I can tell you. You better watch CalPers. You better watch your agencies you work for too.
CalPers says that it's a healthy system. And yet they also say in the same breath, we're paying out more than we're taking in. Does that sound healthy to you?
No. And by no means. But you went to the CalPers buildings. You went to the place. Looks like they do a pretty good job of spending money around there too. And everything. And I sit in there, some of that finance committee, and listen to some of the stuff they were spending money on, and I just kind of, whoa.
Because I've covered this for many years. How wrong is it? How do you explain to people who might be watching, say, in Vermont, how wrong it is to hit someone like you who's at the end of their working career with this kind of cut? They're going to cut your monthly income 60%.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's really wrong. Because, like I say, we don't know what we're going to do. Even though we live out in these little rural communities, it's not cheap to live here. And everything. When you got to go a 100-mile round trip just to go to a hospital or a doctor to go get your groceries and things and stuff. And now, not to have that money, we're just going to have to skimp on everything we've got.
And when CalPers points the finger of blame at the cities, we have a contract with the cities. Who was watching out for you should the city make a mistake is the question I have.
Well, yeah, that's what I always thought CalPers was there for, was, our benefit too, not just the cities. Like I said earlier, they're managing our money too, our share of that CalPers. So the obligation should be there.
Do you think that this is going to happen to other people in California who are part of CalPers?
I don't see how it couldn't unless they change their ways. CalPers change their policies and stuff like that. It's got to happen.
Well, here's one of the changes CalPers next week is actually going to propose. This is going to happen at the end of December. They're going to lower what they call the discount rate. That's essentially the rate of return. They anticipate their assets grow by 7.5% a year. That's not what's happening, but that's what they've always said. By lowering that number from, say, 7.5% to 7%, the cities and the municipalities which take part in CalPers will have to pay more money to cover the guarantees they've made to city employees. Do you think the cities are going to come up with the more money when CalPers says pay up?
It's going to be awful rough, It's going to be really hard on a lot of them, I'm sure, Because I will admit, I think as far as the CalPers pension program and other cities and stuff, there's a lot of pensions out there that are way over extreme.
Benefits are too
way too good. For these people, getting $100,000 a year pensions and things like that, I just think that's absolutely ludicrous myself. But for the average working person that works for a public, system or something like that, making maybe, under $6,000 a month or something, that it's the higher pensioners that are hurting them.
Well, let me ask you this.
Is the way I look at it.
There is something incredibly wrong about telling someone who's retired or past working age, we're going to cut what we pay you.
Mm-hmm.
That to me goes against everything that the promises we make in our society. Am I wrong?
Yes, you're right about that. It is. It's wrong. There's nothing right about it at all. And that's why, like I say, there's responsibility on the city here. The city here started it. I don't know what was in their mind when they decided to do this or anything else, but because everything I can see, and what I've been shown so far, they were able to make their payments. Other than they wanted to take this money for their own little pet projects. And that's another thing pensioners are going to have to start watching what your local politicians are doing with your funds and everything. and stuff and everything. And there needs to be more safeguards in effect to protect these pensions.
You know, when Stockton and San Bernardino and Vallejo were in bankruptcy and trouble, a judge ruled, I believe it was Stockton, you don't have to make the payments to CalPers. You can restructure those, which would have been devastating to city employees who were retired. But the judge in that case said you could. Now, Stockton chose not to, and they are still making the payments in full. But to do that, they had to raise taxes and cut services. Do you think taxpayers are willing to put up with that in order to maintain these funds going forward throughout California?
Yeah, that's hard to say, you know. It's going to be hard on everybody, you know, to be able to do that. You know, somewhere along, like I say, then it comes down to me, you've got to restructure everything. That's why I was getting back at these higher pensions, things like that and everything. The pension system needs to be restructured.
I'm going to wrap up and ask you the question I told you at the table. What's the most important thing you want me to report when I write these stories that people understand about what's happening here?
Well, what was done to us, we don't feel is right at all. It was wrong to do this to us and everything by the city and CalPers and everything.
I mean, who was watching out for you?
Nobody was. Nobody was. And that's one of the main things I'm really mad about CalPers. CalPers had 3 years to be in touch with us and let us know what was going on, or let us be involved with negotiations with the city and everything. And we never was allowed to be involved with any of it. The public here was even kept. It was kept hidden from them because the city declared everything potential litigation. So everything was done behind closed doors. So now the community here, nobody knew what was going on and what was happening to us. It was just all hidden.
What do people now say around town?
A lot of people are really upset what they've done to us. They know us, you know, we've been here all our lives. We kept their water, their sewer going, you know, the city operational for all these years, and then for them to turn around and do this to us. And the 2 ones that are still even left on the council, they're both drawing a CalPers pension. Not from the city, but from the county. You know, it's just all wrong.
Thank you.